Awesome. Welcome to Michigan Business Talk. My name is Mike Doctor, and I'll tell you what, I am very, very excited about this episode. I've had some cool guests, but this is an episode we've been trying to get on the schedule for a little bit now.
Sure.
We've been trying to really go and match everything up. And I'm here with Phil Klein from Phil Klein Insurance Group, and my good friend Noah Raitz, also from Phil Klein Insurance Group. And I'm excited to have you guys on to talk a little bit, not just about your stories, because your stories are great. I've known Noah for 15 or more years now, I think. And we've been good friends for a long time, so I know a lot of his story, and I'm excited for him to share that. And from what he tells me of your story is fantastic. So I'm excited for the listeners to hear that as well.
Fantastic.
And so again, CEO of Phil Klein Insurance Group, founder, owner.
Yes.
Now, this is not your first insurance company, is that correct?
That's correct. We started out as a State Farm agency back 2008, which obviously in 2008 we started a scratch agency for State Farm. If everybody remembers what was happening in 2008, it wasn't the best economic times to start a business. So I always say if you could start a business in 2008, you could do it at any point in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were a captive State Farm agency for about 3 years, 2008 to 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2011, we decided that being captive, which State Farm is, meaning they can only represent them, you can only represent State Farm.
Sure.
Being captive was just going to be a little bit troublesome for future growth. So we decided to break away from State Farm and open up our own agency. And that's how Phil Klein Insurance Group, or PKIG as we're now known, was founded. We decided that it was just a better option for our clients.
Sure. And now, Noah, tell a little bit, I guess, about your background in insurance, because you've worked on both sides of that coin too, right? As both, you've been in this world for quite a long time. And so with your experience, working with those two different types of insurance policies, and maybe a lot of people don't really understand what that means, if you can only offer State Farm.
Sure.
What really, I guess, is the difference between those two things to somebody who doesn't really think about it and just knows that their auto insurance or their business insurance gets deducted once every 6 months or monthly or whatever else it is, right?
Right.
So talk a little bit, explain that if you could, so people just sort of know, what the difference in insurance options are, because some people might not know how important it is.
Right, sure. So, like
Get a little
most,
closer to that mic
sure.
if you could too.
Not everything's the same in the insurance world.
Okay.
And I've been in the business 15 plus years. Did work for some captive agents before. And what I found out really was that you really can't help your client. You really can't help them with their specific risks. You can't really manage their risk properly because you just have one source to go to.
Okay.
So it's like, trying to fit that peg in a circle. That's all you're getting. You call a captive agent for a quote. You're gonna get asked maybe 5 or 6 questions. That's it. Okay, boom. You're gonna get some numbers thrown at you. Usually those numbers don't equate to adequate coverage, because really, in my experience, they're just basically slanging policies. They're just trying to, which that's fine. They're just trying to make their living. But on the independent side, it's more of a counselor advisory role. It's more of we're in a better position because we're not trying to fit that peg in a circle. We're actually assessing the need. We're acknowledging that there is risk, there's exposures here. Which, by the way, you buy insurance to protect your assets. You buy insurance to make sure that the companies are going to be paying those claims instead of out of your pocket. And so I always tell people, if I don't know anything about you, then how can I properly manage your risk?
Sure.
And we're going to get comprehensive here. We're going to talk about, this is why I'm asking you these questions.
Sure.
It's because I need to know you. I need to know your family. I need to know what you're driving around, what you're living in. I need to find these things out so then I can properly give you something that's going to protect your assets and do a loss. Now, as far as like the biggest difference, I think, from the independent side versus the captive side is who you're working for too, right? I'm sure there's a lot of great captive agencies out there, but I haven't found one that is as well run as this one.
Sure.
And I think, and it's a testament to Phil, really, obviously, because he's the one that started it. But this office is not. There's not a bunch of new agents in here, right? They're just trying to learn the business. I mean, all of us in here are seasoned veterans. We're professional risk managers. We have a ton of experience. Combined in this office, we have a lot of experience. And with experience comes, you're in a better position to counsel somebody because you've already seen things. You've already been through things, like most things.
You've heard the story before, and I think there's, State Farm does great with their marketing on that,
Sure.
too. And there's so much that you guys just said there, and I guess, Phil, I'd be interested in knowing why, from an owner-operator standpoint, and I have to imagine, because my wife and I do renovations in Detroit, I have to imagine that it's something similar to like if I only had a hammer and then tried to build a house with only a hammer.
Sure.
That would be, hey, you can have State Farm coverage, right?
Sure.
Or if you have multiple different options, because I used to have MEMIC insurance. Full disclosure, Noah is my insurance agent. He helped me transition from there. We've been trying to work together for a long time, right? And and honestly, we haven't been able to figure out a way to be able to get me away from MEMIC until he got here.
Sure.
And so that's a cool testament, I think, to you guys, because they're kind of known as the mafia of insurance and keeping things really tight and good for their members. But from your perspective as an owner, what was the reason you wanted to transition? Not just, obviously you can be more customer centric, but also setting up your employees to have a better chance of success. Like, maybe talk about that thought process a little bit with your decisions.
Well, sure. And, going back to what Noah just said, being State Farm is a great company,
of course,
and captive versus an independent. If you want to know what the difference between captive and independent, obviously just at the raw, captive is they just represent that one particular company, where we're an independent, where we represent somewhere between 25 and 30 different carriers. And what that does is it allows us to customize more of a policy for you. The way I equate it to is if you walked into, let's say, a shoe store and you found a nice pair of shoes and you said, hey, I'm a size 11, and they said, hey, we have a really nice pair of shoes that's a size 9, and you said, hey, but I'm a size 11, and then they come back to you and say, but we really have a really nice pair of size 9s, you might say, well, that doesn't help me because I'm a size 11.
Right.
And that's the kind of the analogy I would use captive to the independent world. They really have one policy that they can produce for almost every one of their clients.
Sure.
Where we have the opportunity to kind of really go deep with our clients, really get the time to know them. We like to say we manage risk for a very select few clientele, and really get to know them. And really, at that point, get to really tailor-make a policy that fits your needs. Because like anything, like a fingerprint that you have, your fingerprint or your insurance needs are different from mine, different from Noah's, different from the guy up the street or the woman up the street. And so, and everybody, let's just face facts, everybody hates paying for insurance until they have a claim,
right.
And then they want to make sure that they have the best coverage possible.
Yeah.
And what we say is, come claim time is really not the time to find out whether or not your coverage is adequate. You really need to find out and really need to go deep with your clients beforehand and find out that you're actually managing the risks that they have.
For sure.
So that when a claim does occur, they actually have adequate coverage. And one of the things that you just asked me, which is why, what's the difference between captive and independent as far as from the agent's perspective, is we are really looking for career-minded individuals. We're really looking for people that really want to have a career in the insurance business. One of the big things that you have in the insurance business, the way that an agent actually sustains their career is building a client base and then keeping that client base over the course of time, right? Instead of being what we would call a hamster on a wheel and every single year trying to replace every client that you have, you're trying to build that long-term relationship with a client. Being a captive, you're really beholden to whatever price or whatever policy they put out year over year. And at the end of the year, if your price goes up by 10, 15, or 20%, you might say to Noah, hey, Noah, I really like you as my agent.
Sure.
But the pricing or the policy is not adequate for me at this moment, or it's a little bit. Whereas now Noah, based on what he has the opportunity to say, okay, well, I've built a great relationship with you. You like me as your agent. You think that I do a great job. I've managed your risk. I've done everything I should. At the end of the year, whatever carrier I have with, whether that be AAA, Citizens, Liberty Mutual, Safeco, Hartford, Travel, if their pricing or their policy changes over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years, you still have the opportunity to keep your business with me, Phil, or Noah as your agent, who's done a great job with you by moving your carrier. And so we have the opportunity to kind of move you, which in turn for Noah gives him the ability to really try to go deep with his clients, build a relationship, and then understand that if in the event something happens, he has the ability to change their policy to a different carrier to keep them as a client.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's got to be huge. So you guys would definitely say that you're able to be more customer centric than
without a doubt,
than say just any given insurance company that you.
I mean, look, I like to say if you took drew a 5-mile circle around my office, there's quite a few insurance agencies that you'd come across. We're not unique in the fact that we're the only insurance company out there. So what really truly does separate the one insurance company from another is, one, their level of customer service, and two, the level of ability to customize the policy for you.
Got it.
And that, as an independent, gives us a much bigger advantage over what I would say the captive State Farm, Allstate, Farm Bureau, things like that. Like I said, great companies, and they are big for a reason.
Yeah.
But they are limited in what they can offer you as an individual. They kind of offer you the same thing as they offer every single other person.
Right. So Noah, talk about, I guess, how you feel you can operate better as an agent in an environment like that, because I've known your career through a variety of different agencies, and I don't know that I've ever known you to be as happy as you are working at this place here. And I'm not just saying that to make him look good in front of you. I honestly, I swear to God, Phil, I don't know.
Good.
I don't know that he's ever been as happy, and I want to parlay this into personal growth and what you do for personal growth and development, because I think that's huge. And I guess I just want to sort of see, from your perspective, Noah. And you worked for some great people, right?
Yeah.
You did, and I know those individuals too, on the west side of the state and on the east side of the state. And so, what's the difference for you as a high-performing veteran in this world, right? What is it about this environment that allows you to be the best version of yourself that you maybe didn't get elsewhere? Because I think this is huge for anybody who's listening, who's running a business and working right now to try to grow that business, but you're stalled and you have some sort of stagnation in your employee morale, right? And you have that, and you can't figure out what it is, right? And most likely it's one or two little things, but I think from a perspective of somebody who is building their own thing in an entrepreneurial type of environment, right? You have your own book of business. Nobody hands you anything, right? You do your own thing, and if you don't produce, you don't eat. That's the way the world works in general, and in insurance, right?
Absolutely.
And so talk a bit about how this environment and why this environment has helped you be able to really grow more so than you have at some of your other places.
The first and foremost is the support.
Okay. What do you mean by the support?
You mean there's a ton of support as an agent that's building his own book of business. I don't have to worry about coming into the office without getting the support. And I'm talking about financial support. I'm talking about, support when I want to make a decision on a file, or when it comes to servicing a file. We have a great service team here that takes care of those things. I'm confident in all those people.
Mm-hmm.
It really takes a lot of pressure off me as a producer to not have to worry about, I'm going to work really hard to get this client, but now the agency's going to take care of them. I don't have to worry about that. Where other places that I've worked, I had to service that client. I had to it was all on me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a service team. I didn't have, the CEO of the company, the founder of the company backing me up on decisions. But here's one of the greatest things that I've said this before, is Phil he provides an environment to where you have to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you won't. Period. And it's the right person that comes in and responds to that that's going to make it, instead of somebody that comes into that environment and reacts to it. The way I responded was, I love the people that work here. I love how they talk. I love how they act. I love the fact that they know what they're doing, that they're confident with what they're doing, and they're here to support me too. A guy that, just came off coming from a captive company.
Yep.
They were very, very welcome to me. And I've been in a lot of agencies where If you're the new guy, right, it's not that way, right? Because you're
Right.
almost like you're competing against each other.
Yeah.
But we compete against each other here too. But it's all for PKIG. It's all
Right.
for we have weekly meetings every week, and we talk about as a group together what we need to work on, what we need to grow in. Everything is a team environment. And I said this to Lizzie that if somebody can't come in here and succeed, they're not going to succeed anywhere else. They just won't. It's not even that. It's getting out of your comfort zone sometimes has to be forced on you.
Yes,
right?
it does.
Sometimes getting out of your comfort zone is hard to do, but when you realize that it's really not that bad and you have more in you, a whole nother level of success appears. I feel like I'm pushed here to the point of, like, if I know the numbers that I have, it's not anybody's fault.
Sure.
Like, I'm not gonna blame the guy that owns the company or the people that work for me or the carrier that I'm working for. It's me. Phil provides enough tools. He's always said he can provide the tools, but he can't build the house.
Yep.
And what he's done to make this business work is more than I've seen any other agent producer out there, any other principal out there. He really truly does care about the people he works for, but he also doesn't let you off the hook. And being accountable is what we all need as salespeople. We all need. I mean, just as a person in general, I think it's good to have somebody in your corner that's going to say, "Hey, your zipper's down," or something like that.
Right.
But somebody that can be very transparent and very honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And give you the environment. I think the best way, and I'll end this with this, is that this opportunity has given me a chance to win. It's given me an opportunity to win. Where there's a lot of opportunities, quote unquote, out there, they're not set up for you to win. They're set up to make the other person win. And the way that I love this model is because it's all designed for my success. And I can either accept that or reject it. I've embraced it. And when I feel like he's trying to get the extra yard out of me, it's not because of Phil, what he wants, it's because he knows.
Yeah.
That's how you get that extra mile out of somebody else. And then they realize, like, man, I have more in me than I did. I mean, I'll be 43 years old next month.
Yeah.
Been doing this for a long time, and yet sometimes I feel like I just started.
Sure.
I just started doing this.
Right.
He gets the most out of you, and he does it in a very, very, very loving way. But at the same time, it's for your betterment of your career. And the team chemistry that I feel like we have here is bar none. I mean, all of us, we're great friends. We work hard. We play hard. I've just never been in an office where people just love being at their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's really how it is.
Right.
I mean, it's already past 6 o'clock, and I guarantee there's somebody out there on the phone.
Yeah.
Just feeling that pull that he provides. But at the end of the day, like, I go home at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I know that I did everything I could that day. And then when I come in tomorrow, he's going to say, "No, you didn't," and it's going to make me go another level. And that's really an art. It's a testimony to him.
Yeah.
Because he understands people. He understands what motivates them. He understands how to get that out of them. And by the way, when that happens, all of us benefit from it. We all grow.
So, and that's amazing, and that's huge, and I'm glad to hear you say that, and that spawns so many different topics of conversation just in what you said right there. But I guess just to start, Phil, like, when you first set out on the, hey, I'm going to start my own company, because I think a lot of top performing agents, people who can sell think they can run a company.
Sure.
And that's not always the case. And I'm sure there's a lot of other things that go into running a company. Money is one of the 4 pillars that you need, but in the same respect, there's the environment that you need to create. There's the culture that you need to foster. Tell me about that journey. Tell me about was it, when you first started, you envisioned this as your perfect corporate culture, or did it evolve with you as you were going through the game? Like, how did you get to this point here with your company? Well, to where somebody can, because you've been here for a year?
Just under a year.
Just under a year.
Right.
And you've been in the business for 20 years, and I've never heard you say that about any other place that you work.
Because it just doesn't exist.
And that's a huge thing. And so Tell me about that process, because I think no matter what industry somebody's in, those are keys, nuggets, and secrets that people need to have.
Sure, and I was fortunate enough, without naming the company, before I got into my own business a couple of companies ago, to work for a really good company that culture was one of the things I took away from it.
Sure.
One of the things I like to say, and it's not mine, it was actually the CEO of this company that I work for, is that money doesn't lead, it follows. If you're only about the money and you're only about how am I going to enrich myself, it's not going to work. Money has to follow, it doesn't lead. And so what I like to impart is what I would call servant leadership. I am here to serve the agents. The agents aren't here to serve me as the owner of the business. They're not here to serve me. If they are successful, if they in turn reach their goals and objectives, and I give them the proper tools to do that, then everybody's going to win. In the end, I'm going to win. So when I first set out to start the company, culture was one of the things that I really decided that I was going to focus heavily on. Not the money that I was making, not whatever it is, because I can tell you for the first few years I did open up this company, I did not make any money.
Yeah.
It wasn't a money, it wasn't a money in my direction. It was only money
Right.
going out, and I had to invest. And I think one of the things that people get into when they get into a business is they just think, okay, I'm going to hire these employees. The employees are going to help me make money, and therefore I'm going to then pay all my bills and do all my things and
Right.
write all that. And that, in an ideal world, that actually is great.
Yeah.
However, that's not the way to build a long, sustainable company. I believe strongly in culture first, setting them up for success. As Noah said, I give them the tools. I cannot build the house. And my job, from my background, I came in. I went to the University of Michigan.
Yep.
I wrestled
Go
for
blue.
Go blue.
I was going to bring that up too. I was
Go
going to
blue.
ask. Yeah.
Go blue.
That's right.
Very
clear on that, by the way.
clear.
Very, very clear.
I think being in wrestling, I got a lot of unbelievable coaching.
Yeah.
And I learned really quickly, like anything, throughout the course of my career, from grade school through middle school, through high school, through college. There were some coaches that I gravitated towards that got the best out of me, who did the different things, and some coaches that did not. So I learned really quickly about what I thought was a good coach. And I took that mentality to the insurance world, which is, hey, I'm just a coach. I'm the CEO. I'm the person that they're going to look up to. I'm also the person that has the responsibility for making all the pieces come together. But I'm not here for them to serve me. I'm here to coach them to be better than what they were yesterday. One of the things that I like to try to do is push them to the edge, and then just a little bit further, because that's really the only way that you grow in the end. And I take pride in the fact that we have 20 people up here, and they feed their families. They feed their kids. It's
a big deal, man.
It's a big responsibility each and every other Friday to make sure that the paycheck is in that bank account. But I take pride in that, and it's not something I take lightly. And I really take a lot of pride and happiness in the fact that when my agents come to me and they say, I've made more money, or I've done more things, or I've grown more professionally than I have ever in the last 6 months that I did in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years working for somebody else. That really is what I'm after. I'm looking for those people that really can understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, and really hone in on their strengths, and let me help you overcome those weaknesses. Some weaknesses you can't overcome. Some weaknesses are just going to be there as a salesperson, as an employee, as a person. But that doesn't mean that you can't be successful. So you got to try to make sure that you take the strengths and weaknesses and try to get the best out of everybody. And the one thing that I think that we understand here more than any place, or at least in the insurance world, is everybody is different. What success looks like for Noah is different than what looks like for some of our other agents here. And some of his strengths are some of the other weaknesses. His weaknesses are some of the other people's strengths. And you really have to, just like being captive versus independent, you really have to tailor make a process and a business plan for each individual agent to say, here's what this agent needs going forward to make sure that they're successful. And I look at it as kind of like a puzzle. Sure. And I really, if you ever put together a puzzle, each puzzle is a little different. Yeah. Sometimes what works in one doesn't work in the other. And that's what you have to kind of do with each individual agent. But I can't stress enough that anybody or any entrepreneur that's looking to grow an insurance business or any other type of business, culture is literally, I think, one of the most important features, obviously, besides getting business itself.
Right.
setting up the proper culture, making sure, I think we've all been in those environments where they're toxic, where you just, when you wake up and you're in bed in the morning and your eyes open and you're just like, gotta go to work, or, I gotta do this. I've told all my agents, period, if that ever occurs here, that's the day I would tell you, be honest with me, and let's figure something else out for you, whether it's here or somewhere else. I want my agents, if they have to come here, I want them to be excited to come to work each and every single day. I want them to want to be better than they were yesterday. I want them to do right by themselves, right by the company, right by our carriers, and really grow as a career, right? We're not a nonprofit organization. Let's just face it.
No businesses.
No businesses. We're not a nonprofit organization. Noah doesn't come here every single day for just purely wants it. We're here to make some money, and we're here to do certain things. But I feel like doing right by the clients, making sure that they're covered properly, making sure it's a win for them, we're going to win in the end. That's just a win for us in the end. If there's a win for the client, there's a win for the carriers that we put them with, and there's a win for our agency, that's great. If one of those entities is losing, it's really not a win. So what we really try to do is really try to tailor make a policy for our clients, make sure they win, make sure they're paying, understand what they're paying for, and making sure in the event that there's a loss that we're going to restore them to pre-loss conditions. And at the same time, obviously, we're making money and building long-term relationships and building income over the life of a client.
Right, and that's awesome. And I think if you can blend all of those things, I mean, that's the ideal, right?
Sure.
So, and I wanna transition back a little bit to, and just hit on the wrestling and the team sports and wrestling in particular. I didn't wrestle, but I studied Aikido, which is a movement type of grappling art, right? And I'm curious how some of the lessons you learned about when shit's hitting the fan transitions into your daily life here now, right?
Sure.
Because wrestling in general is not an easy sport to do.
I think it's the most difficult sport out there.
Yeah, and collegiate wrestling, I can't even imagine the level that you need to especially at a place like University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Right, to the performance that the output that you need to have. But to that point, there's going to be times where you're punched in the face and things suck.
Yeah.
And and like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Exactly.
And so with the more, because you're a high performing agency, you're a high level agency, this is not a fit for everybody.
Absolutely not.
Right? So when there's those crucial conversations that need to happen, because they do probably every single day in some way, shape, or form, how do you approach those, and what lessons have you learned from your own struggles to help other people figure out, hey, can you get through this, or do you really need do we need to think about a different option? Like, what are some of the things that you can relate that people, don't even think that they're learning, probably should pay attention to throughout the course of their career?
Yeah, the thing that wrestling taught me, to go back to the beginning part of your question, the thing that wrestling taught me is wrestling is a sport where, even though it's a team sport, right? The University of Michigan is a wrestling team, or my high school is a wrestling team. It is, when you go out on the mat, you're performing as an individual.
Yes.
And there's no days or bad days. If you have a bad day, you're gonna lose.
Yep.
In basketball or some other team sports, if you're not having a good day, and you can pass the ball to somebody else, or somebody else is a hot shooter at that point, or
contribute in some other way.
Contribute in some other way. Whereas in wrestling, when you step out on the mat, it's just you against one other person. So one of the things it taught me was, you got to figure it out. There's nobody here that's going to help you. Once you step on that mat, there's nobody here that's going to help you. And so some of those attributes and some of those qualities I tried to take to my my business career. Yeah. Starting a business in 2008 or 9 or 10, when I did these things, wasn't for the faint of heart. There was obstacles every single day. And one of the things I like to say, people ask me, how sometimes did you become so successful in this insurance side? And sometimes I like to just say, I was too stupid to know I couldn't do it. And it's a flippant type of statement, but it's actually the truth. Obstacles come each and every day, and I feel like what wrestling taught me was, you have to be mentally strong. Like anything, there's certain things every single solitary day that get thrown at me that in any one of those could derail my entire day.
Sure.
Or my week, or my month, or the year, or derail Noah's day, week, mother. And you have to try to become mentally strong in the fact that in sales or any type of business, there's going to be more negative than positive most of the time, and if you can, if there's 70% negative and 30% positive, that 30% positive can make you rich.
It sure can. It sure can.
And so I think it's how you approach each and every single solitary, each and every obstacle. I know it's cliche, but there are really no obstacles. They're just unresolved opportunities.
Yeah.
It's not something I've made up. That's the truth, but it really is.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do here is really try to push the envelope. I think a lot of places that you go, they're like, okay, here's your quota, and you're either making the quota or you're not making the quota, and it's pretty cut and dry. Oh, you didn't make the quota this month, whatever it is. I really try to take a deeper dive into it. There are some times that people make their quota, and I think they did not have a great month. And there are other months where people did not make their quota, and I think they had an outstanding month.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot about activities and growth and what you're doing to get better as an agent, and really taking into account we're here for a reason. Just like any other sales environment. I feel like what I said before holds true. The money doesn't lead, it follows. So if Noah's here and he's only trying to really just make money, which I know is an objective, without taking into account what he's really trying to accomplish for the clients.
Yes.
I like to tell him, you have to not sell the product, you have to sell the problem that you solve, right? And in our industry, what's the problem? Because insurance, let's face facts, is not sexy.
Sure.
Nobody goes home to their friend and be like, look at this great insurance policy I just bought today. That doesn't really occur. Whereas if you go to Best Buy and you buy a TV,
right.
you're having people over for the game, you're like, look at this great TV I just bought, right? It's kind of, so you really need to you need to really go deep with that client and really understand what their needs are, and really let them understand what you're trying to provide, the problem that you're going to solve for them, and push yourself each and every single solitary day. And I think that mentality of, even though it's a team environment, right? We do operate as a team. However, Noah's paycheck isn't dependent on somebody else's paycheck. It's all, and vice versa.
Yeah.
However, I've kind of fostered an environment here where even they're competing against each other, but at the same time they both want to see, they want to see themselves succeed, because they know his success ultimately at the end of the day is the company's success, which in turn will help make them successful in whatever they're doing too. Yeah. So it's really a team environment.
And that's awesome. And and again, Michigan Business Talk, thank you for joining us here with Phil Klein and Noah Raitz from PKIG, Phil Klein Insurance Group. And you might be out there listening, and you might have heard the last 10 minutes, and you might think, well, of course, this guy went to the University of Michigan, probably got a wrestling scholarship, he probably had every single opportunity under the sun. Of course, it's easy for him to be able to bust through the 2008 to 2010 recession. It's super simple. So I want to transition over to Noah. And Noah's history is a little bit different and didn't have that structure. And what I know about Noah is I know that Noah has the exact same mentality that you have. And I would like to use Noah as an example for everybody out there who may be thinking, well, if I don't have this or if I don't have that, I can never achieve this level of success. And quite honestly, that's just bullshit. 100% bullshit. And, I'd love some more conversation around that if you guys would tend to disagree. But no, I think you are a perfect example of somebody who maybe didn't have all the perfect opportunity coming up, and the work ethic and understanding how to stay in your lane and do things the right way for the customer has helped you achieve the level of success that you're at right now. So if you wouldn't mind, because I think everybody would like to know, tell a little bit, I guess, about your story and your background and how you got to this point, and maybe focus a little bit on some of the things that we were talking about. You did not go to the University of Michigan, even though you are a University of Michigan fan, and probably the biggest one I know outside of Phil now.
And I am Korean, which was not, that's not an automatic shoe-in.
It's not. It's not. Okay, even if you play, yeah, right. So you didn't go to the University of Michigan. Tell a little bit about your background and coming up and the school that you attended, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Barely high school educated. And the one thing that I did know...
Get a little closer to the mic for me.
Yeah. One thing that I did know, I think, earlier on, was that I wanted to be in business. I just didn't really know how to go about being in business without having to go to school to get into business.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, pretty much grew up in the restaurant business, as you know, a lot of people that didn't finish school, but really was just lost. I was just lost.
Mm-hmm.
I think like a majority of people that are at that age when you're out of high school, you really just don't know what you want to do. But here's the thing: I wanted to be successful, but didn't even know what that meant. I wanted to have money, didn't really know how much. I wanted to have nice things. I wanted to do all these things. And it was one day I was walking through an airport. I remember, I must have been 19 or 20 years old. And I saw a guy get off the airport, and he had a really nice suit on and a nice watch, briefcase, cellular phone at that time. And I just said, that's what I want. That's what I want. I didn't even know what the guy did. Didn't even really understand any of that. But all I knew is I wanted to be successful in business in some form or another. I stumbled across insurance, really. I knew some people that were successful in it. I knew some people that made some pretty good money to what I thought was good money. But I really loved the aspect of creating residual income. Doing the work once, getting paid as long as that book renews.
Mm-hmm.
That intrigued me from the very beginning because most sales careers, January 1st, you start all over, right? You got to go right back to zero. And I thought, doesn't it just make sense? This insurance thing, doesn't it just make sense? How could that not be lucrative? As long as I did what it took. For a long time, I didn't do what it took. Maybe there's a couple different reasons for that, but I think really where it originated was I just didn't have an identity to myself. Long story short, I was adopted, grew up in foster cares, grew up in the system. 18 years old, they pretty much opened the door and said, good luck.
Sure.
So I didn't really have an example. I didn't have a role model. I had really nothing that I could really mirror myself after, except for the guy at the airport that I knew nothing about.
Right. This picture that could have been out of a magazine for
Right.
for anybody else's.
Right. But there was, I think, something in me, and I think if you talk to a lot of people that have succeeded at any level, there was something in me that I wanted to succeed, wanted to do something that was almost impossible to me at that time. But once I started to really understand, and I think coming to this organization really helped me fine-tune that, is the identity. Is like, what really are you? And what do you do? Before I was just trying to sell something to somebody, to anybody that would take it. And then at the end of the day, feel like I was successful. Where now I've more evolved after all these years. I've evolved into a professional. I evolved into somebody who wasn't going to just take your order. I evolved into somebody who was going to actually manage your risks. And that was easier for me to actually have that identity after somebody that came along like Phil and taught me, you are a professional. You don't have to just take somebody's order. You are really managing their risks. You think about how many people out there had suffered losses because they didn't have a professional.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of, if you worked at a claims office or even sat in one and listened to those phone calls, you would know that the majority of people that have a bad experience come claim time, it's because they were working for a non-professional, period. That's all there is to it. And so I begin to have that identity because Phil has that identity. And I begin to adopt a lot of the same things that he says to people. And a lot of people in the office, we say a lot of the same things because it's true, number one. But number two, it makes people realize that, hey, this is just not a piece of paper, a note, and a promise.
Yeah.
Like this actually does mean something. I remember I had a client in Rockford, real quick story. I presented something to them, and they did not want it because it was $200 more than what they were paying. I literally talked them into doing it because I understood the coverage. 2 weeks later, they're on vacation. Their house burned to the ground.
Oh, come on.
Their house burned. They were on vacation when that happened.
Wow.
I get a phone call on a Sunday afternoon. Hey, our house burned down. Okay? You know what? I went back and I looked at and if I would not have pushed for the extra coverages, the adequate coverages, they may not have had their house rebuilt.
That you knew were necessary.
That I knew were necessary. And that's the thing, is I stood on the principle because I knew what I was telling them was 100% true, and I went back down on it. 2 weeks after their house, by the way, they got to stay in a hotel. Insurance kind of picked the tab up because I made sure it was covered. coverage here.
Sure.
They had their meals reimbursed to them because the coverage was there. They didn't have any problems with it. 2 weeks later, after they got back into their house, they called me out of the blue and invited me over for dinner. I didn't make it a practice to accept those invites, but I did because of the situation.
Sure.
And I remember sitting at the kitchen table with this woman, and she was literally in tears. And at that moment, I realized really what I do.
Yeah.
And I kind of strayed away from that, leaving that organization, because it wasn't that's how I felt, but it wasn't how the agency owner really felt.
Yeah.
He just wanted me in the cubicle with the headset on my phone, dialing for dollars. None of that really mattered, right? But coming into this organization, I think about that story, because what we tell people all the time here is, just like he said, that's the wrong time to find out.
Oh, sure.
Anyways,
yeah, right.
Long story short, and I tell people this, they give me objections on the phone. I tell them, you know what, Kathy, she didn't say I wasn't interested. She said, thank you. She said, thank you. So when I call somebody and I ask them, are you looking to reduce your premium without sacrificing coverage? And they say no, or I'm not interested. I'll say, let me tell you this really quick story. Because this person that I helped didn't say they weren't interested, and they didn't say no, right? So it's just affirmation that what I do actually is what I deliver.
Yeah.
And what I deliver is what I do. It's just one constant thing.
And what you talked about earlier was, having the support system and the fulfillment, right? Having the actual, the actual. Okay, anybody can sell something fancy if they got the right words, right? But actually being able to fulfill on that and having the execution is huge. And I guess I want to ask you, and maybe some tips from both of you guys to new agents, right? Because what you talked about right there is you're absolutely right. It's the difference between a long-term sales professional, a long-term entrepreneur or business owner who has an impact and has that long-term residual, and somebody who's going to be fly-by-night. There's the quick burn of cardboard, and there's the long, beautiful burn of hardwood oak, right? And so what mentally, because part of it has to do with the environment, right? We have to have metrics. We have to make money. Business exists for a profit. It's the only reason a business exists.
Absolutely.
Is to make a profit. But mentally, that can destroy you in the midst of it as a new salesperson who's running through trying to meet these metrics, and you're focusing on a number. And when you focus on a number, it becomes more impersonal, and you treat people more impersonal, and you treat people like a number. You don't treat them like the story that you just told, right? Which is the right way to treat anybody, regardless of what you're in, is with basic human decency, to be able to help them get to that next step or that next level. What are some of the things that you guys would say to new agents that they need to do to separate themselves mentally from, the process and the results? The results, but like you said, the money follows. But there are a lot of times when that monthly review comes out that it doesn't seem like the money's following. And it can completely derail you from staying persistent and consistent, which is ultimately what it takes.
Well, sales in general, like we said before, you get a lot more no's than you get yeses. So you have to start with getting mentally tough that, hey, I'm going to get more no's. And what we do here is we focus on the process. We focus on what are the activities, what are the things that you're doing on a daily basis. Like I said to you before, there are times when people meet their quota for a month and I think they didn't have such a great month, and then there's times where the people didn't and I think they did. And what we try to focus on is what are the processes? Who are you? What's your identity? What are you trying to accomplish? First off, when we onboard somebody, we're trying to get them to buy into our culture. And that's the first step, because we have a different culture than a lot of agencies out there. We aren't throwing what at the wall and see what sticks. And we turn down business, or we turn what we would perceive as turning down business, where other agencies will write whatever they can get their hands on. We really do. I think it starts with identifying who you want to be, and then identifying what's the clientele you want to deal with. Because Noah is only one human being. We do have a service team, and we do have different things. But there's only a certain capacity of clients that he can help, and help in the way that we want to help. Okay? And so identifying who he is, identifying who our client is, and then really sticking to that model, and really identifying those things, and really, on a daily basis, living what we preach. And that is, we're here to help manage the risks. We only manage risk for a select few clientele. We can't be everything to every single client,
Sure.
and that's okay. There are clients that have different ideas of what they're looking for, and that may not be what we can provide,
Right.
and that's okay. But I think really one of the things that separates us is that we really have an identity of what we're trying to go after, and who we want to be, and we also have a plan for the future, and we also have metrics that we're targeting. And the metrics isn't just about the bottom line dollar.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line dollar will follow.
Mm-hmm.
The metrics that we're setting up is how are we going to get better this month? What are we going to do? What are the activities are we going to do this month to make sure we're better than last month? Quarter, year, half
Sure.
year. And we really try to stick to those metrics and see what we can figure out, and really try to really hone in on the clients that we really think are the ones. And obviously then, once we hone in on a client that we really think that we work well with and mesh, we're trying to duplicate those people,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is coming to a formula. I like to say that, a lot of people have the formula, they just don't know how to put it in the right sequence.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
And finding the right sequence and how you put together all the metrics and all the things that you're going after is one of the best things that I can teach Noah, teach all my agents is, we come, anybody I hire, I truly believe they have the right stuff, otherwise I wouldn't hire them.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there aren't people that came to work here that didn't make it.
Sure.
Okay, because that would be not telling the truth.
Okay.
Okay, there are people that don't make it, but I feel like the people that don't make it, there's a couple of reasons. I feel like they can't find their sequence. They can't find the right metrics and put them in the right sequence, and the right activities and put them in the right sequence. Because everybody's got sales talent that you hire, but it isn't for everybody. Sales is a very tough environment. Whether you're selling insurance or you're selling cars or you're selling widgets.
Yeah.
Sales is a tough environment, and you have to have thick skin. But realistically, I think to be successful in sales, you really have to have a self-motivation and a drive to be better than you were the day before. And that's really it. I mean, if you can come in every single solitary day and be like, I'm going to be better than I did the day before, I'm going to talk to more people, or I'm going to help more people, I'm going to sell another policy, or I'm going to upsell, meaning I'm going to provide to them something they didn't. You know how many people come to us and they don't have one of the things in our environment is an umbrella.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So that's an umbrella policy. So they'll come and they've never really been consultated on why the use of it is. People will tell them, hey, if I said to somebody, do you know what an umbrella is? Yep, I know exactly what it is. Has anybody ever taken the time to explain why you need it, or what it's used for, or when it would be useful for you? You'll get 99 out of 100 times, no, nobody's ever taken the time to really discuss it. Same thing when somebody comes here with a policy. We get a lot of what they call declaration pages, which is their coverages they currently have.
Yep.
But one of the questions we ask them is, has anybody ever taken the time to explain these coverages to you so you understand what they mean before you actually have to use them?
Right.
And most of the time people will be like, well, that was just what my insurance agent, or that's what I told them I had, or I don't really know. Do you know if it's adequate? Do you know if that would actually cover you in the event of a loss, these coverages? I have no idea. So we really take that time to really kind of go deep with those clients and making sure they understand it. And sometimes even whether they do business with us or they don't, they at least walk away better educated. And that's one of the biggest things that I think as a salesperson separates the best salespeople from the mediocres. The ones that can educate their clients. It's about education. If you can educate your client and making sure they understand whatever they're buying or why they need to buy it or what the problem it solves, the better you off, as opposed to pushing just spewing verbiage of like, hey, I can get a PDF together with the best of them that lists all the best qualities of whatever policy you're buying. But people really need to understand what they are. And what I like to say in the event is, people do business with people they like and trust, with all things being equal. With all things being equal, they do business with people they like and they trust. With all things being unequal, they do business with people they like and they trust. And you have to build that rapport and trust with them. And it can't be fake.
No.
It cannot be fake. And there are a lot of people out there that are really good actors or actresses, and they can fake it through, and maybe they are successful 1 year or 1 month or 1 quarter. But I really feel like the people that really care about their clients, making sure they understand them, and really do get to know them on a deeper level and try to maintain that relationship, those are the people that are successful in the long run. And I'm not looking for the agents when I hire somebody who's looking for that next stop on the train. And I'm looking for people that have more of a long ramp, something that they really want to plant their flag somewhere and be part of something more special than they are, and get to do that.
So, and here's a question that just builds off of that. And no, I got another one for you in a second. But with, and then I got another one for you too.
Mm-hmm.
We've all ran into those people, whether we've been on the sales team with them or we've been somebody who's been sold by them, but just the absolute slayer closers,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, it does not matter. They're going to sell you 2 timeshares when you didn't even want to go to the presentation, and
Mm-hmm.
they just have that gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people like that. I
Sure.
used to work with people like that, and they're great people, but they have a specific. It's almost like they were created to close deals. It's really weird, and it's something that I think can be taught to a certain extent, and is arguably one of the most important parts of the sales process, because all the things that you're saying are 100% necessary to increase the confidence of somebody, to increase that rapport, to build that trust, to do all those other things. But at the end of the day, a deal's not a deal until the paper's been signed and the money's been transferred in the account.
Sure.
Right? And a lot of salespeople, myself included, started in my career and even recently, you can close a certain level, and then all of a sudden you may be thrown into a different level where there's a few more zeros on the end of it, and the techniques are a little different, and the conversation's a little different, and you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, people do business with who they trust and who they like, but to that sales cycle may be a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those decisions that they're making may be a little bit different. How do you teach closing? Because a lot of the stuff you're talking about is great, is amazing stuff that a lot of people, I think, lack when they're so focused on the metric, is they're not trying to provide the value. Everything you're talking about is providing 100% value and service to the client, so that they know that what they're purchasing and what they're investing in, because that's what they're doing, is they're investing in it, is going to be something that's going to give them the payoff in some way, shape, or form. But when it comes right down to closing that deal, because nobody, like you said, nobody wants the ones that are going to be the 6 months and gone, or the year and gone, or whatever else. Those bigger deals, how do you teach that skill set?
Well, and I think there are you mentioned certain people that they can sell, whatever they want to sell to, they sell 2 timeshares when somebody only wanted 1. So there is a certain level of, I guess, talent that you need to have, certain innate abilities that you need to have when you're looking at sales. But how do we teach it? First off, when we're looking for closers, we're trying to teach them that the closing should take care of itself. Mm-hmm. Okay? You have to earn the right to ask for that close. You have to earn that right. It's very easy for me to talk to somebody on the first phone call or whatever phone call and be like, hey, let's do business together. Hey, let me just get this thing done, and let's get it done. But earning that right is, I think, a different mentality. Yeah. And I think I feel like I take the best part of, I think everybody has an innate talent. Some are better closers, some are better information gatherers, some are better servicers, some are better sales. But what I think we do here is we try to take the talents of every single person and try to maximize those talents. So how do we teach closing? We're teaching them about what does the process look like. First off, I look at it as kind of like an upside down pyramid. Mm-hmm. Right? So you start out broad when you're talking to a client, you're trying to get information gathered, you're trying to get the best of, you're trying to get all the information you need to do it. And then you're trying to lead them down the path of whatever they're going to at the end. Obviously, at the point of the pyramid, that's when you're asking for the sale. Yeah. Right? And I feel very strongly in the fact that if you've done your homework, asking for a sale is very simple. Mm-hmm. And it almost comes very naturally. But teaching them that skill, sometimes you have either 2 people that are too eager and ask for it too soon, or they never ask for it. Mm-hmm. So it's a fine line, right? You have to be able to understand when you feel like you've earned that right to say, hey, I've done everything that I need to do. We're going to get this done. And I try to teach my agents that they can't ask for the sale until they've earned that right.
That's huge, and that's a great perspective to look at it, and it speaks to the rest of your culture, right? I think just hearing that explanation speaks to the rest of your culture, because I think a lot of in the metrics-driven societies and the metrics-driven businesses, the way that they're teaching it is they're teaching it in terms of, well, if they say this, you should say this, or if they say that, here's your script for your overcoming objections. Which a point of reference in scripting is important, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You need to have it, but being able to, like you said, feel and know and because I've heard people say that great salespeople and great closers are the individuals who can bring people over who are on just the edge of that fence, right? But that goes not necessarily contradictory to what you're saying, because I'm sure there's still scenarios where that happens even when you have earned that right.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think people take that to the extreme of thinking, this is a game that I can win with this person, instead of this is something that, you know, I'm providing them this value that they actually need, and this is a free exchange of commerce and ideas and services that everybody is on board with.
Sure.
You know, and I think those are two different perspectives on how it's attacked.
You know, I strongly believe I've been around some of the best salespeople around that could, again, sell anything they want to anybody, and some of some of those best salespeople, some of them I really gravitate towards, and I would follow them off a cliff.
Sure.
And some of those great salespeople, I'd be like, nope, not my.
Sure.
It's not my cup of tea. It's not the way I would do my particular business. And so, and in other sales environments, real estate, for example, you make a sale. And basically, you get paid your commission, or you get paid up front, and that's what you get paid. And the next time you might earn a commission off that client might be 7, 8, 9, 10 years when they buy another house.
Yep.
They earn once we sell a client, once we do what we're supposed to do, that's when it actually begins. The service work actually begins, because really all we do sell is a piece of paper and a promise that if something goes wrong, we're going to restore you to pre-loss conditions, right? And so we really need to walk the walk and talk the talk. We can't just say, oh, we're the best agent out there and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We really have to actually come through and deliver it, because that's the only way for us over the long haul to make money, is to really get that client to go deep with us and stay with us for a long time. And so closers, the way we really try to make it is it's an individual sport, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Absolutely.
You know,
you
Noah,
make the free throw, you miss the free throw.
Noah has a little bit more strengths and weaknesses than somebody else.
Sure.
And so we're just trying to get everybody to get to that point where they feel comfortable and confident, because I feel like one of the best closers are just confident.
Yeah.
It's almost surprising when you've done your work and you've done what you're supposed to do, it's almost surprising when they don't do business with you. It's almost like, wait a second. I mean, I've given you a better policy, better coverages, I've saved you money, I'm a better agent than the one you have, I'm going to take care of you over the long haul. Why are we not doing this kind of a thing? And so I think having sometimes a mentality of just, thank God you got me on the phone, because you could have gotten that schmo up the street. You got me, a professional, somebody who's going to look out for you, who cares about you, cares about your family, who's going to get to know you, your children, your wife or husband, and making sure that we understand what their needs are, and not just, you know, what's good for my pocket.
Right.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we really, like I said, we're here for you. We're not here for ultimately, and the money does follow. It doesn't lead. And I think some of those big-time closers, some of those people that are just always on it, they're short-term successful. Long-term, I think it becomes difficult.
Or their hustle is harder.
And they burn out. And those are the type of people, when I interview people, when you see, okay, they were 2 years in this business, 3 years in the next business, 2 years in, you know, switching, not even from company to company, business to business, whether they were in real estate sales, then they went to insurance, then they went to mortgage, then they went to, you know, selling cars, then they went to this. And they have a track record of being successful for a 2 or 3 year window, and you're like, wait, what happened in year 4, 5, 6, 7? It kind of either they burn out, or they burn their employer out, or they burn their customers out.
Yeah. So, and Noah, that's a great transition point to my next question, talking about the mental toughness, and because you talked about before, you know, the no's are a part of it, and the failure is a part of it, and it's one of the things I'm trying to teach my kids right now is like, do this and screw up, please, and just know what it feels like.
Fail often.
Yeah, fail often and fail forward, you know, and try, and if you get hurt, it's okay. We're going to be here to help you through it, you know, but try it and experience it. And people get scared to know because they take it personally, and they take, you know, they think that they're being rejected as an individual. That's
very common.
You know, opposed to the actual, you know, something that maybe was just missed, or, you know, if you feel you've done everything right and you've executed everything right, and you hit execute and something doesn't come out the way you want it to come out, you're obviously going to be confused, and that warrants another conversation. But it's hard to go through and burn through the no's. And one of the earliest things I was taught in sales, and I don't necessarily know that it's right, but it's that whole grinder mentality of, well, your next no is just that much closer to a yes, and so on and so forth, and all these little quips and cliches that we use. But at the end of the day, those are just quips and cliches that are band-aids to try to make you feel better when your head's about to explode, because you can't separate yourself from all the results you've gotten for the last little bit. And Noah, talk to me, I guess, about over having a 20-year career in this business and good seasons and bad seasons with good companies and bad companies. What are the things that you did to be consistent mentally to continue making those calls, man? Because it's not easy, especially when you're just starting, even in the same industry at a new company, and now you're starting from square one, you're starting from zero. And you've done this, for so long, and maybe people who have done this for quite a while, or even people at the beginning who think that they're, maybe a little bit better than the guy next to them, they may feel a little entitled, and nobody's entitled to anything.
Right.
And it gets right back down to the work. What do you do to keep yourself motivated? What do you do to keep your brain in it and stay in the game when you're, feeling like you're just at the end of the bench the whole time?
Well, I think first of all you have to know why, and I think you have to remember why. I think a lot of people forget why they're doing what they're doing because they get so wrapped up in actually doing it. So the why just kind of disappears. But as far as from I guess a technical perspective, is I just work on myself. I mean, I'm trying to be a good person in general. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard.
Right.
Sometimes that's hard because you have a lot of people that are trying to wrong you. You have a lot of people, that are in it for themselves. But the biggest thing is building up a tolerance of mentality. You have to build a tolerance up in your mind to overcome anything in life, and you have to continue to build that. Being positive, I know is what I want to say, but I don't really think a lot of people really know what that means.
Yeah.
Being positive is not just forgetting that the negative happened to you or something bad happened to you, but being a positive person is actually believing that you're a positive person. It means that you actually have to buy that yourself first before you can just go out and saying you just got to be optimistic. That's fine, but when you've been in situations that I've been in where I had no choice but to be positive.
Right.
I had no choice. I had absolutely no choice. The only choice was that the situation was going to get better, and I'm going to make it better. But I contribute a lot of the mentality to reading, and I don't know one successful person that really doesn't read or that doesn't at least
consume that type of information.
Some type of positive information. I read and listen to audiobooks daily.
Getting better than you did the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Anything that builds that tolerance to where you almost have like armor on. Yeah, does it hurt still? Yeah, but you don't have that setback that I think a lot of new salespeople experience is because they just haven't built a mentality to defend themselves.
I would tell you, and again, not my original thought process, but when I see the most successful salespeople, it's a cliche, but it is true. 5%, of what really matters is 100%. It's like 95% of what actually happens. It's really only the 5% how you react to it is really that's where the secret sauce is.
Yes.
It's not the 95% that's happening to you, whether it's the no's, look, when I broke from State Farm and I wanted to start, I called 200 different carriers and I got 200 no's. 200 agencies, carriers that said, no, we're not going to appoint you. Well, I called them all again, and I called them all again, and I kept on staying positive, like, hey, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get some contracts. I'm going to figure this out. So I like to say it's, your success isn't about, the 95% that actually happens to you. It's the 5% of how you mentally react to it, and keeping that positive mental flow, and understanding that you can be successful, understanding that you are going to be successful, and the activities. I learned that from wrestling. It was about what activities are you doing each and every day to get better, because all the activities added together add up to the end, right? In one given day, we're learning, double leg takedowns, and then it's how can you do these different type of techniques, and you're bridging all these activities together. And are you, working out each and every day, and are you doing the different things to get yourself better? Because at the end of the day, the results are the results. But I think the activities, for me, one of the things that when we talk about our culture and what's going on here, I concentrate a lot more on the activities. The end results speak for themselves. I can see on a sales board, you sold X amount. I can see that. That's a pretty cut and dry number. But what the deeper dive is, what are the activities we're doing to get better, and what are the activities that we did to drive that number, and instead of, when Noah, when we're talking about, him getting better in a given month, if he reaches his goals, he doesn't, I'm not just banging on him saying you didn't reach your goals. I'm saying, why didn't we do it, and what activities did we do, and what activities can we get better? And it's more from an educational coaching standpoint than it is that
intelligence standpoint.
Than it is the oh my God, you just have to hit numbers and hit numbers. So I think that problem solving and attitude, for me, I say it all the time. Attitude to me is when I interview somebody, their attitude to me is like literally the most critical thing.
Yeah.
How are they going to react? Because let me tell you something. In business, life, anything you do it, there's just always problems.
There's going to be.
There's always problems. And if you're the type of person that's just going to crumble under the weight of the stress, or because, look, we work in a high stress environment.
100%.
Sales, high stress. Typically when we're the client we sold something to needs what we sold them, it's because something went wrong.
Yeah.
So they're in a high stressful situation. He talked about somebody that had their house burned down.
Right.
If your house burned down, that's probably the most stressful situation you could possibly think. You have your kids, all these different things. We have to be that calming force. We have to be that person that says, we're going to make this right. And so problem solving, attitude, those are like critical. Problem solving, those are just such critical attributes for sales, whether it's insurance sales or any other sales. It's just such a critical attribute.
I agree, and I think when you have the confidence that you can solve somebody's problems, it allows you, I think, more energy. It gives you more energy,
Sure.
And that mentality, I think helps a ton. So I guess the last question I have, sort of our last little topic I want to talk about here, Phil, with you, before we wrap up here and find out more about what's going on with Phil Klein Insurance over the next year or so, because I know you guys are ramping up your social media and focusing on some cool things too. So I'd love to hear more about that. But in terms of building a business, because you just started a new company as well outside of the insurance world, correct?
That is right. We started a company, mortgage company, Metro Home Mortgage.
Metro Home Mortgage. Okay, cool. So, and again, there's a lot of people who are great mortgage salespeople. There's a lot of people who are great insurance salespeople. And there's a lot of people who are great salespeople in general who think that they can then run a team or a company, and those things are two very, very different worlds. So the mentality that you're talking about and the culture that you're talking about, it doesn't get built overnight.
Absolutely not.
And so there's some sort of time frame that somebody needs to think of as realistic in order to get to that point. But I think everybody goes in thinking, hey, I'm going to make this big change, I'm going to do this, and it takes a long time and a lot of effort to steer a ship and change it just 1 or 2 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the things that a business owner needs to have in place in order to weather the time storm that might come along with trying to make a significant change in their organization? Because I can't imagine that anybody who's going to watch this or is listening to this and hears Noah talk about you the way he's talked about you, and I'm sure anybody else on the floor could come out and would say similar things about the culture.
Hope so.
Yeah, right. We'll get them all on tape just in case. I can't imagine that anybody hearing you talk about what you're trying to foster here wouldn't want to create that for their own people, or wouldn't want to be a part of an environment like that. I regardless of what industry they're being in. But what does it take to actually create that? What are the things that a business owner needs to have in mind in order to not feel like, holy crap, we need to make these metrics or nobody's getting paid?
Right.
Right.
So one of the things I like to say that when I really feel like most business owners, when they start, depending on how much money they have to start a business, I personally had none.
Yeah.
So I had to start it on kind of credit cards, and I started it on my
been there, done that. I know what you're feeling.
Wife's 401k, my 401k. We cashed it all out.
Yeah.
So success for me was almost mandatory because failure was not an option.
Similar situations.
Failure wasn't an option. But I really think culture and finding a way to surround yourself with the right people. And I like to say, when I think the business started taking off, was when I started working on the business and not in the business. You know, having the right people in place that I could trust, that they were going to get the things done with my clients and do the right things, so that I could work on the bigger, more, profit generating activities, where I was actually trying to build more of the business than I was the actual inner workings of it. And I have to tell you, I think that, you know, one of the things I think people make a mistake in the beginning is they'd be like, well, I'd love to hire this person, but I can't afford them. You can't afford not to hire them.
Yeah.
If you find the right person in the right place, you have to be able to give them the right tools to succeed. And then I'm a big proponent of letting them succeed. I don't love micromanaging. So I really feel like one of the biggest mistakes that a business owner makes in the beginning when they're trying to do it is they try to micromanage every last aspect of it. And it is hard, because it is your baby, right? This is my baby. This is something I started from scratch, from policyholder one.
Right. And which was me.
You know, I started this from scratch, and sometimes letting go of certain things. And somebody once wise told me there's a lot of ways to get to town.
Sure.
And just because it's not the way you wouldn't do it doesn't mean it's not good and not good enough to get the job done.
Yeah.
And you have to start to really let your people that you've surrounded yourself with, you have to start to let them grow. You have to start to let them feel like they have the ability to make a difference. I think one of the things Noah would tell you is that I tell every single one of my agents that you, even though you don't own the company, you are responsible. You are part of this company, and you are responsible for its reputation. You know, reputations take years and years and years to build and seconds to destroy.
Yeah.
Okay? And so
Yes,
I really
indeed.
give them the autonomy to make critical decisions inside their business. And I also, for a business owner to build that culture, I take this with a grain of salt, but I almost like to give a attitude of, I'd rather you ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
If what you're doing is you think it's in the best interest of the business and best interest of you as an agent and best interest of the client, I can accept you making a mistake. We make mistakes once, we don't make them twice.
Yep.
And so I really feel like, as a business owner, letting your people hiring the right people and making sure they fit your vision and your culture.
Yes.
Because hiring somebody that doesn't fit even if they're good at what they do, not fitting your vision or your culture is a mistake. Okay? And then once you find those right people, giving them the tools to succeed. Once you give them the tools to succeed, let them fail and not feel like they're gonna all of a sudden be in the deepest of deepest trouble.
Live out of their car. Or whatever.
And really make them understand, like, hey, your decisions really do affect not only you, it affects me, it affects the other people in this office, and we're kind of in this together. I feel so strongly about culture and hiring the right people and making sure that you give them the ability to fail. And I think a lot of business owners, because when I started the company, I was severely in debt. Because the only way I could start the company was to be severely in debt. And that could have clouded a lot of my judgment in what I was doing to try to succeed. It can cloud your judgment because everybody's like, oh my God, I got $100,000 worth of debt. I got to make sure I pay this off. Where I was just always of the opinion, if I build the right team, culture, the right people, give them the tools to succeed, making sure that this will take care of itself. It will just take care of itself eventually. And I really feel that served me well. And when I go back to the thing, I was too stupid to know I couldn't do it.
Right.
That was part of my clouding of my judgment, was that, like, I'm just building a team.
Yeah.
I'm working on the business. I'm doing the right things. The money is going to follow me eventually down the road. So the biggest mistake I see a lot of entrepreneurs make when they try to start a business, it's all about the money.
Yep.
And rightfully so, by the way. Look, if you're $100,000 in debt, or $200,000 or $500,000 or $1 million that you have to start a business,
Still monthly payments.
the money it is important. I can't stress it enough. It is important. But I think having a really good support system and really making sure that you support them in the right way is the key.
And I want to. Everything you're saying is gold right now, and I appreciate it. And I'm sorry for continuing to build on this and this going a little bit longer, but I think all the listeners will appreciate that too. I want to talk about the support system, because what you're talking about right now and the way you went to business is not for the faint of heart. It's the same way that I got my business started, in real estate and consulting and this and everything else. And I could not do it if I did not have the most amazing wife in the history of the world. And
second to my wife.
Yeah, second to your wife, of course. And just talk a little bit about how, I guess, A, important it is to have that support system, and B, how important a high level of communication is when you're going to choose to leverage yourself and other individuals' money and everything else,
Sure.
and build something like that, and how important it is to be able to not just drive, but also have that relationship and that bond to do it together. Because even if you're doing two separate things, and I don't know if your wife sells insurance or not.
She does not.
She doesn't.
She's a high school guidance counselor.
Okay, perfect. So she's a high school guidance counselor, but guess what? She's in the insurance business,
Yeah.
right?
She is absolutely in the insurance business.
And so talk a little bit about how that relationship looks, and you don't need to go too deep into it because that's a whole other podcast. But,
Right.
But from some of the things as young entrepreneurs are looking, and people are starting to get married later in life now, which I think is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people are waiting until they're late 20s, early 30s, and developing their career. And really, I think trying to make better decisions and whom they're partnering with once they find out what it is they like, which is a very wise thing to do. I did not do that, unfortunately, the first time around. I did this time. But talk about how important it's been to have that support at home, and if for whatever reason you're with a partner who is reserved, maybe it's not something that should be translated as they don't support you, but more they're scared of losing everything that it is that you have.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously a conversation, even if they do support you and have the utmost confidence in you. When you're going into debt and you're starting on credit cards and you're cashing out retirement accounts, and I've done all of those things to get my business started and get the foundation laid, so I know exactly what you're talking about and exactly how it feels. And it's not for the faint of heart, and I like your perspective on that and how that looks with the family life.
Well, first off, just like you said, I thank God every single solitary day that I have my wife. She was the rock that I needed. And I will tell you unequivocally that there's no chance that PKIG or Phil Klein Insurance Group would be where it would be without my wife, Shayna. Mm. And she has never sold a policy.
Sure.
She has never sold anything, never been part of our meetings, nothing here. However, she was the sounding board. She was first off, she believed in me. When I told her a long time ago I was going to quit my job to start my own business. That's before I went to State Farm. I'm going to quit my job, which I was making a pretty good living, and because I feel like there's something deep in my soul and my gut that says I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur, not work for somebody. That I'm supposed to actually be the person that people work for, because I feel like I can make the most difference that way as opposed to working for somebody. She supported me 100%. She really did. Now, I think if you asked her now, looking back on it, just like anything, she might have been like, "How did I know what I know now?" Maybe I would have been
a different conversation on the front end.
Maybe I would have pumped the brakes a tiny bit. However, we're through it. We're on the other side of we're on the other side of the tunnel. But having that communication piece, I mean, she was the type of person that always walked me off the ledge. So when I come in here into these four walls, I'm the rock. I'm the person that everybody has to look up to. I'm the person that, when they're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to jump off this cliff," I'm the one that walks them off the ledge. I'm the one that's going to give them the tools. And so now Shayna, when I went home, she was the one that gave me the tools to succeed. She was the one that inside our four walls at home was the person that said, "I'm going to give you these tools to succeed so that when you go outside, you'll have the tools to succeed." And I'm in awe on her of every day. She worked full time. She took care of the kids. She did all these different things. And I really feel like the communication piece and us getting together every single night, I would go home with pages on pages of notes and be like, "Okay, what do you think of this? What do you think of this?" And sometimes her not even having the business perspective was actually, a big positive, because she saw things from a different angle that I couldn't see them from.
Sure. Yeah.
And obviously she had just as much at stake as I did. And so, she could look at it from, I guess, an interested but an uninterested third party from what I was saying. I was coming home and I was talking about people. I was talking about culture. I was talking about what went right in the day, what went wrong in the day, what I needed to do tomorrow to make sure that it was a successful day, oh my God, in 2 weeks we have to make payroll, and I have to take more money out of your 401k to make this payroll.
Right.
So for me, it was really more of a communication, and realistically, everything that I provide to my agents inside, she provides to me at the helm.
That's amazing. Now,
she really does provide that to me at my house.
So was it hard for you to initially, and I'm sure now, it's obviously become easier as time goes along, because my wife and I work together too. We renovate houses, and so we're she runs that show more than I do, and so there are times where I'll bring something up and she will lovingly correct me, and I get a little ego hurt, because it's like, you're not seeing things the way that I'm seeing. You're not in this right now. You're not this. You're not that. Right? How was that right away when you were going and you were you were reaching out to her for support, and she would offer that loving correction? How hard was it for you to separate what you had just done for the last 8 hours from what was being given to you as feedback?
It's very hard. I mean, I will be as brutal honest as I can. Being a business owner, one of the things, not gonna know, but one of the things that Noah has advantage is that when 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whenever he goes home, he's thinking about other things. Sure. I think, and when I go home, I have to think about. It's just starting to think about the business, so it's really hard to separate it sometimes. So my wife sometimes would be that rock to be like, okay, listen, that happened at work. Now it's family time, and here's what we have to do. And obviously, there were also times where she knew. She was very instinctive to know, okay, not only is it not family time, we have to get this thing done, and I'm going to have to jump in, and I'm going to have to help him, whether that's helping get on the computer, do different things, whether that is financial, whether it was, emotional, whatever it was, support. But she was always really good at knowing me and knowing what I needed to succeed, just like I'm trying to do that for the agents. But it's very hard to separate it. I would be lying to tell you that there are not nights and days and whatever when I come home and PKIG is the only thing that we talk about for a little while besides the kids.
Yeah.
But just compartmentalizing all the things that I have to do in a given day, and then trying to give myself, okay, I'm coming home, I want to have dinner with the kids, I want to make sure that I talk to my wife about other things besides what is going on at PKIG and what's going on in her life, and because it does take its toll. Owning a business and being the business owner, there's no way around it. It's going to take a toll on your personal life. It will, and if that is something that you can't get over, owning a business is not for you.
It's incredibly difficult. It is. Everything from start to finish is incredibly difficult, and in a general sales environment too. But with the business owner aspect, there's a general sales environment, and then there's everybody else who you're responsible for in the general sales environment ecosystem. Right. And I'll tell you, man, it sounds like you're doing an absolutely amazing job on all fronts, which is super cool. And it's one of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast, and it's one of the reasons I was excited about having you as a guest, because stories like this need to be highlighted. They need to be talked about. So let's transition a little bit to what you guys got going throughout the rest of the year. We're in 2020 now, right? The Roaring 20s, big fancy.
Right. Back to the Roaring
20s. Back to the Roaring 20s, ready to kick some butt and take some names. There's a lot of stuff happening. We probably live in one of the best times in all of human history to be able to accomplish what it is that we want to accomplish. I think that that's very, very true. And there's a lot of people who are trying to get out there and just get some stuff rolling. What are you guys focusing on for the next year? What is the next leg for? Well, first of all, Noah, what are some of your goals for the next year? What are you trying to do for your clients? Let me ask you this: since you've made the mental shift that you were talking about earlier, from being a real, professional individual who can assess and manage the risk of somebody's situation, describe to me the person that you could potentially help the most? Like, what is the ideal wheelhouse that PKIG can really truly make the biggest difference for right now?
Sure, definitely. I mean, that's a pretty broad question.
I know it is. I'm
sorry. No, that's right. Really the goal, I think, overall, obviously outside of building the business and the revenue and making the money, for myself, being a contributing agent to this operation, is just to grow the name as big as we can grow it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can have anything to do with that, that's one of my goals, is to help push PKIG into this new year. But not only just push it into the new year, but really make a really profound statement. And Phil has a lofty goal. He has lofty goals, but I buy into all of it because I believe him. I mean, how can you not believe him? I mean,
Right.
you know,
Right.
But not. I mean, to really keep the ego in check, right? And getting new policyholders and closing deals. That's like Phil said. That's just a product of what you do on a daily basis. Your activities. I'm not so concerned about that. But for me personally, being an agent here, working with this organization, it's more about getting people to turn their head a little bit differently when it comes to insurance. When it comes to calling an independent insurance agent, to turn their heads just a little bit different. And I think what Phil's doing as far as the social media, as far as, we have opening day coming up for the Tigers game. I'm super excited about.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
And TV commercials that maybe you've seen now that are being aired on CNN, ESPN, all the major networks. All the things that he's done and he's doing to push the brand is exactly what I'm all about. It's what we're all about. Is we all want PKIG to be a household name.
Yeah.
But we want people to look at it with just a little bit different view than just calling the other agent.
Yeah.
And I think that for the most part, the people that really do buy into it, they really, when they meet us, they really see that. They really can tell that, they are different. They are professionals. They do care. You're not just a number to them. And really that spawns from Phil's passion and is what he's done. It bleeds into all of us.
Yeah.
I hear it every time he talks. I hear it at every staff meeting that we have. I feel that. And when I get on the phone with somebody, it's almost like it's being transferred through me as well. Almost like that protege mentor relationship. But no, I mean, outside of just building my own book of business, which obviously is a focus, 2 to 3 years from today, I really want my children to look at what I've done, just because of getting back into the business and being a winner is hard. First knowing to win is difficult. Some people don't lose and they got everything that it takes, but sometimes it just takes the right opportunity in the right arena with the right coach to really feel like you are a winner.
Yeah, that's very true.
And to me, my vindication is, when my kids are getting to that age when they're in high school and possibly leaving high school, is that they've seen a winner, that their dad is one. And to be honest with you, up until this point, I don't know if I could have said that. And that's why I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity, because like I said before, it's given me the chance to win. It's to be a champion in my own life, in my own career, but to my children, that's just something that, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to feel like a winner when they go home?
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't feel that way working for anybody else, working for any other organization when I know what they're all about. But here, it's just not that way. So I want to continue to help Phil with his goals. I want to continue to be a support for all the agents in here, and while building my book of business and making a lot of money. In the process of doing that.
We're not a nonprofit.
Yeah,
Because
right.
that's what that.
But the cool part is that was the last part of your list. It wasn't the first thing that came to your head, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so cool about it. And that's why that type of mentality, and I've known this about you, knowing you for 15 years, is that's the type of person you are. I know that's the type of person you are. And I've seen you guys all over every single social media platform now about, right? What's the goal? What do you want to communicate, Phil? Like to everybody who's out there, not everybody thinks that, like you said, it's a piece of paper and a promise isn't the sexiest thing that people get all excited about. Right. What's the story about PKIG that you really want to promote using these channels, and what is really what you're trying to accomplish with the new initiative for this year?
Sure. Well, look, I think over the next few years, my goal with getting the brand of PKIG out there, there's a reason I want to. I truly, in my gut, in my soul, feel as if everybody needs to be insured with our company. Why? Because I think we do it better than anybody else. I think we protect people better than anybody else. I think we care about people more than anybody else. I think we educate people more in the insurance realm than anybody else. I think we were here when the times are tough for anybody else. And I truly believe that our brand recognition and what we do to get out there, that's why we're doing some of the things. My goal over the next year is to become the premier brand of insurance in the state of Michigan and beyond. And you can't do that with just marketing and advertising and whatever it is. You have to walk the walk, talk the talk. And I believe so deep in my gut that everybody should be insured with us. They really should. Why? Because I think we do it better than anybody else. I really feel like we care about our clients more than anybody else. And I know that the next agent up the street's going to be like, no, he doesn't. I do. Okay? But I have to believe that, and I do believe it. And I've created an environment to do that. So what do I see for the next few years? The sky's the limit for PKIG.
Yeah.
I really truly believe we're going to add new agents. We're adding all the time, new service, new agents. We're adding new opportunities, the mortgage side of things, because we want to be that holistic approach to our agents. We want to be added value.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't really. I mean, everybody's seen the commercial. 15 minutes saves you 15%.
Sure.
Okay, and I get that, but that's not us. We're really here for our clients, and I really feel like if my message to the public is, you should be insured with us because we are going to protect you. We are going to really get to know you as a client. We're going to make sure you and understand your risks before you have to use them. Where the agent up the street is not going to do that. There's no reason that you should not be with us. Everybody that you come in contact, if they own a home or if they have a car and they drive it on the streets of Michigan or anywhere else, you have to have insurance.
Yeah.
It's required. Auto insurance is required by law, and homeowners insurance is required if you have a mortgage, and if you don't have a mortgage, I think it's even more more important to protect the assets.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of whether you buy that product; it's who do you buy it from.
Sure.
And I think PKIG should be your answer. And so my goal is to expand the market share that we have over the next few years. We are growing at a very rapid pace. With all of our carriers, we are, and so over the next few years, I want to be able to help more and more families. I want to protect them, making sure that I restore them to pre-loss conditions, because that's what it is. You know, there's a lot of families out there that if they had a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 loss, they could not afford it.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
A lot of families can, but a lot of can't. We want to make sure that in the event the target is on ours or the insurance company's back, not on your back as the consumer or the client. And so PKIG right now is on a mission to educate the state of Michigan, whether that's the new auto reform laws that are coming into play,
which is a big deal.
Big thing. And
Big
that's a
deal.
whole podcast we could do on auto reform.
Right, it's a whole series,
a whole
probably.
series. Because that, by the way, when we talk about education and the new auto reform laws, there's a lot of things being thrown out there. But do people actually understand how that's going to affect their actual bottom line and the policy that they have? We are taking the forefront and making sure that we're going to educate our clients on what's going on with the auto reform, making sure that we are there for them to make sure that they understand what's happening. And those are things that your agent up the street, not that there are not other great agents, the agent up the street is just kind of saying, okay, July, it's going to happen, and hopefully you won't call me.
We'll just all adapt.
We want that piece. We want to interact with our clients. So the next 5-10 years for PKIG, I think, is just the sky's the limit with the branding and what we're trying to accomplish. And like I told you before, servant leadership. I think if we serve the public, everything else is going to work for us. Just like if I serve Noah, it's going to work for me. If we just serve the public and make sure that they understand what they're buying, what they're doing, I think everything else is just going to fall into place. Goals wise, we don't have. I don't really have specific numbers that I would say. I mean, I guess I have an idea of where we're going. Yeah. But I think we're going to be the premier agency in the state of Michigan. That's what awesome. I think. That's what I think.
I have no doubt in my mind about. I don't after this conversation and the confidence in your voice and your eyes when you said that. I 100% believe that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Noah, how can people get a hold of you if they want to find out more information on how to work with somebody from PKIG, on how to figure out if the type of insurance coverage that they have is adequate? Because I know you would tell them if it was too. If you guys aren't the right solution, I know you'd tell them that as well. So if people just want a second set of eyes on it, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, obviously, you can just Google Klein Insurance if you would like to. You can read some really good reviews on there as well. I think we have over 400 5-star Google reviews, which is crazy.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't have that, man.
Well, I think Noah's being generous. I mean, I mean, you can get a hold of us in multiple different ways. You can get a hold of our website, PKIG.com.
Sure.
Or, you can give us a call on our number, 248-682-7445. You can call Noah at philkleininsurance.com, and he'd be happy to help you in any way, shape, size, or form. No question, no person, no anything is good or bad. We want to try to talk to everybody and do everything for everybody that we possibly can. So getting a hold of Noah is pretty simple by either phone, fax, emails.
Right. He has all.
You can set up smoke screens,
right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. Michigan Business Talk. My name is Mike Doctor, Phil Klein, Noah Raitz.
Go Blue.
Go Blue. Don't forget it. All three of us here, big Michigan fans. You can listen wherever podcasts are heard. You can tell Alexa, play Michigan Business Talk on Apple Podcasts, and she will just spit out a bunch of great content and information, like Phil talking about how he built his business and Noah talking about his story. And you can find us on YouTube. And if there's something you want to hear, let us know. Please rate us. Please share. Please like. Please let us know if you don't like it. Any interaction is great. We definitely want to continue to build things. We got some more great guests coming up. I hope that we get to sort of revisit with you guys in a year or so.
Would love it anytime.
This has been great conversations, and about 3 or 4 other conversations spawned from it that we could do some podcasts on. So this was great, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
See ya.